Yellow.
I'm trying to reach John Goodenough, please.
Speaking.
Hi, sir. This is Bill Burke from Tempe Prosecutor's Office. How are you?
I'm doing good, Bill. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I have court in a few minutes, but I figured I could probably call you before I go down there.
Awesome. I'm not looking for a whole lot of information. I just wanted to make sure that I got no word from Phoenix that it was transferred to you. I kind of heard it through the grapevine. So just
Right.
basically calling to confirm that you guys got it. If you got court, that's great. I wanted to provide you guys my contact information so that I could be kept up to date, etc.
Right. We do have it. I was out with COVID last week when it came, but I just finished reviewing everything.
Okay.
So, and I haven't told Phoenix yet, but we have already made our decision on
Okay.
it. So we got it to review for the assault. Obviously, that was what they
Yeah.
sent it to us for. And in when we're charging something, we can't charge it unless there's a reasonable likelihood of conviction, which in a criminal case is beyond a reasonable doubt. Um, Even though I think what the officer, I think his behavior was not very professional whatsoever. Um, I don't think we have enough to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt.
Okay. That kind of concerns me. And
Okay.
let me tell you why.
Sure.
Um, that nobody's interviewed me
Okay.
from your office before making that decision.
Oh, I don't
Um,
interview any witnesses. I
well,
basically
I
have
you didn't interview. You
I
did.
can talk to the officer.
I understand. But it's not in the statute. It references what happened to me, how I felt about his actions, right? What kind of
Right.
fear he may have put me in, which he did.
Okay.
And nobody's from your office before making that charging decision um, asked me those questions, which would qualify
No,
under the statute. So that concerns me,
no, the statute doesn't. It's what his actions were, not what your reactions are. But
right? But he
it's
put
okay.
me in
We're
fear.
not an investigative agency as the prosecutor's office. We
I
do that.
understand. I
We put
understand.
it together and then we review the evidence we have and then we make a decision on it. So that's why we didn't contact you. But I'm happy to talk to you about it. And I did watch the videos. I watched all the body cams, the officer, the sergeant, your cameras. I read all the reports.
So you saw him walk to in my direction from a distance.
I did.
You saw
Yes.
him place his hands on me unprovoked,
Yes.
and that placed me in considerable amount of fear, especially since that man did that under the color of law, why armed, right? And
Right.
so we've witnessed all of that. You witnessed him place hands on me as an agent of the government, unprovoked.
Right.
There is
I did.
no exception in the law in the Arizona statute for law enforcement. I was placed in considerable fear for my physical safety, loss of freedom, loss of liberty, which has resulted in a lack of trust in law enforcement. And the decision is, without interviewing me, to not move forward with charges.
Well, I do understand how you feel, and I think I think somebody else in that
No,
position
that's
would feel
not
the
no,
same way.
Bill, and
I
I'm
do
not
feel
trying.
that.
Bill, I'm not
Okay,
trying to be controversial. I'm not trying to be controversial,
and
and I'm asking for an answer. My question is,
I'm answering your question, but
you
you won't
know,
let me
you
answer it.
you, you addressed my feelings, and my feelings, okay, on the decision are really irrelevant. My question was this, and I apologize if I wasn't clear in it as a question. So
Okay.
my question is, we reviewed the video, which showed, if I'm understanding you correctly, which showed him walking a distance to me, placing his hands on me, a member of the government, of law enforcement, under the color of law, who was armed, placed his hands on me unprovoked, causing me to be placed in fear for my physical safety, loss of freedom, and nobody interviewed me, but we're making a decision on not charging, on not moving forward with the charges. Am I correct in my understanding?
We are not filing the assault charge for the reason I indicated. and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I was trying to answer your questions,
Okay.
and you interrupted me
So,
and said the exact same thing you told me 2 minutes ago.
okay.
So
So,
if you want me to explain
okay.
why we're not, I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
If you don't want to listen to my explanation, that's fine too. I don't. That either way is fine.
Okay. I apologize. Bill, I don't want to make this adversarial. I understand
No,
where you're
nor do
coming.
I. Nor do I.
Okay. So,
I'm trying to give you all the information that I have. I'm trying to tell you our process. I'm trying to be transparent about it all.
I understand,
I agree with you.
I'm just I'm trying to get clarification, and if
Okay.
I interrupted you, please accept my apologies. That wasn't my
That's
intention.
okay.
I just wanted to get
I accept your
clarification.
apology. No problem.
Okay,
And I
so
understand these things are frustrating, and this happens quite often whenever we have cases that we turn down where people are not happy with the
well,
results.
I understand in some cases, but there's clear video evidence, right? There's nobody interviewed me from the prosecutor's office, right? Which
I told you
that
why that
that could
was.
that well because you made a
You were
decision
contesting that.
because the decision was made without talking to me as the victim, right? And so I understand the process, Bill, and I'm working to change that process, right?
Okay.
So
So you want to make the prosecutor an investigative agency?
no. But Bill, I'm a private investigator of over 30 years. I've worked
I
with
know.
law enforcement my entire career. I have
Right. I know.
prosecuted everything from simple shopliftings to federal cases involving multiple federal agencies. Okay.
Okay.
I get how the process works. I understand how prosecutors work. I work with the Maricopa County Prosecutor's Office for almost a decade on a daily basis. I understand how the process works. I
Okay.
don't agree with your decision. I don't believe you
And I
did your
respect that.
and I and this citizen's opinion, right? And it's not a personal thing against you. It appears to be against the process, right? As a citizen's decision for the prosecutor to make that decision when it specifically states in the statute if it places the individual in certain conditions, either mentally or physically, for you to make
Well, it
that
doesn't say that. It
decision.
says it places a person in a reasonable apprehension of receiving physical injury. That's
Yes,
what it says.
and I was
It doesn't say.
in clear apprehension of receiving physical injury from that man.
Correct.
Okay.
It doesn't say anything about mental
Okay.
anything.
Apprehension is a mental state.
Right.
Right.
Of
That
physical injury, not apprehension of a mental condition.
yeah, but apprehension is the mental state that I became in fear of physical injury and loss of freedom.
Right.
Right?
The loss of freedom is
Clear.
not in the statute as well. I mean,
It's
I
not,
do agree with
but
you.
that's reasonable
You're
fear. But that's reasonable fear, and that's another issue that
no.
again
It's not reasonable fear of losing your freedom. That's not what that charge is. That's
through
not something
physical
I
force,
review.
losing my freedoms through physical force and intimidation, specifically
Losing your
physical.
freedom is not part of the statute. I'm just trying to explain that to
Well,
you. That's
I'm
not what
telling
we
you,
looked at.
I'm telling you, I was in fear of that officer using physical force, putting me in physical injury to limit my freedoms, which is exactly what he
Okay.
did. Okay. And he
Okay.
did that by means of assault,
Okay.
is what I'm telling you. Okay.
I understand.
So that's where I'm coming from that perspective. And in that mental state, I don't believe that you, as a prosecutor, can make that decision independently without
Okay.
discussing that with your victims. And
Okay.
I think the prosecutor's office does an injustice to the victims when they don't, right?
Okay.
And right before you called, I was reviewing the victims' rights, right, for the
Right.
city of Tempe, and you know, I don't believe you're following that guidelines as you guys have set forth in that victims'
Okay.
rights.
Where do you think we're not following?
I didn't get real in depth with it, but you didn't call me before you made the decision. I
That is
wasn't.
not part of what
Nobody
I just
called me
said.
from the city of Tempe to tell me you got the case, right?
Okay.
There was no communication. The city of Phoenix is just as guilty. Don't get me wrong, right? They didn't tell me
Okay.
they transferred it
What
to you.
what am I guilty of? Because I haven't even violated victims'
I,
rights. I haven't even.
I'm saying this is where
Okay.
I come from as a victim. I'm giving you feedback as a citizen, man. That's it,
Right. But I
right?
understand that,
And
but you're
the
saying that I
spirit of
should
the
have
victims
called you
the
or
spirit of the Victims' Bill of Rights, right? The
the
spirit,
spirit,
right? From
the spirit of it means we would have to call
from the you
1,500 victims a month just to discuss how they want the case. That's not required of us. What's required of us is once we review it, to send you notification, and that notification would indicate that you have a right to contact us 2 weeks after we make or 10 days after we make the decision to call and talk about it.
do you not
And we have violated that
Bill,
because we haven't.
and I get you may not have violated anything, but do you get how absurd that really is as a citizen, whose government is failing them, that you get to make the charging decision and then 2 weeks later the victim gets to know about it instead of the victim having input in the process? That's the
Well,
frustration part. That's the frustration part on my end. You may be totally within your guidelines, but as the citizen that the city of Tempe serves, right? I don't believe that the city of Tempe is serving the people by
okay.
following that process. That's all.
All
And
right.
it's not personal against you, Bill. Not at
Okay.
all. I get, man, you guys are inundated. You guys got a lot of shit on your plate. I get it, man. I get it.
Yeah.
But again, you guys serve the people. It I'm the victim. I'm the victim
Right.
of violence by the government. That should be a much higher standard. Uh, we should be going after this guy for than just a regular citizen against citizen assault, right?
Right.
Much more. This is government assaulting the people they serve, and now this is the courts not serving the people they serve. That's the way I feel about it. But
Okay.
I'm working with senators to make some change for you, for your children, so that hopefully my kids, your kids, don't go through this shit in the future. So,
Right.
all
And I
right.
understand, and I agree with you. I don't like people who act like bullies. I don't like people who are visiting authority and abuse that authority. And I don't necessarily like the actions of the officer this day. I just
They
have
were
an ethical
criminal.
standard.
They were
I'm
criminal,
an
Bill. And if I'm understanding what you're telling me, the vibe that you're telling me, you think it's criminal too. But from
no, I'm not saying
somewhere else is saying that we can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. I say you put that in front of, a jury of 12 and let the people decide whether that man, what, you know, let the people
okay. Two
decide.
things. May I respond?
Certainly.
Two things. One is that I have an ethical standard when charging cases that I have sworn an oath to. And the ethical standards of the prosecutor are the highest ethical standards required of any attorney because of the position we're in. One of those ethical standards is that I cannot charge a case unless there is evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that there's sufficient evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not that let's throw it up against the wall and see if 12 jurors will
No,
find it.
but
That's
we,
not. I would be violating my ethical standards. That's number one. Number two, this is not a case that would go to a jury. If you know, a misdemeanor assault is not
no,
jury
yeah,
eligible.
that's
Even if
true.
it were,
That's
there'd
true.
be 6 jurors, not 12. But it's not. I would be violating my ethical standards if I charge something just to see if there would be a conviction or not. That is not how it works, and that is not. I can't. Ethically, I would be violating my standards, and I would be losing my license
Well,
if I'm doing something that I don't think is ethical.
well,
Like I
and
said, I do not like the behavior of this officer. I think he needs either remedial training or some kind of
he's been an officer for
something prevention.
20. He's been an officer for 20 years. That man has
Right.
been an officer for 20 years. That man misquoted multiple laws to me. That man told me that in violation of my constitutional rights and my 17-year-old son's constitutional rights, that it was the law that he had to answer questions. After 20 years, I don't think remedial training is the answer. This man, in my opinion, should be held accountable. And you even agreed that he put his hands on me unprovoked.
I
And you didn't take the time to interview
I
me.
did not say that, and I did not agree to that. I said I don't think we have enough to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed assault against you.
Okay. All right, Bill. I
Because
think
if you
we're
look at the statute, it says that he has to intentionally do it to place you in reasonable apprehension
okay.
physically.
Okay, let's.
The reason why I don't think we would be able to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt to a judge is that he does have the right invested by his position to investigate and to
Yes.
give orders to people
Yes.
saying move back or whatever. If you look at 28622, if you violate that, that's a class 2 misdemeanor. If you don't do an officer says who's vested with authority, control, and directing traffic.
What was that statute? What was that? What was that? 28622.
Correct.
Okay, so what part of the statute in any statute says that he can put his hands on me and use physical force? Did you hear me raise my voice? Before he, in the 6 seconds before he put his hands on me, did you hear me raise my voice? Did you hear me insult the man? Did you hear me insult him? I asked him to treat me with respect. And when I asked him to treat me with respect, he told me to calm down.
Right.
That's what he did.
And then you said, no, I will not cut that. Right.
Right, but I had never raised my voice. I had never gotten excited. There was nothing to calm down about, right? There was zero. So there was no reason for escalation. There was no reason for violence. Zero. There was no reason for violence. I asked him to treat me with respect.
Well,
and when I had previously said, what law, he wasn't investigating a crime. He wasn't involved in a traffic stop, right? What law allows him to place his hands on me and use physical force to move me from a place I'm allowed to be in public?
There are laws written that allow people to do things. There's no law that allows me to go get pizza for lunch today.
The Constitution allows me to be anywhere that is not restricted in public. The Constitution allows me that. Right? So I have every right to be where I was standing. I had every right. And I wasn't obstructing a criminal or a governmental investigation. I didn't bribe him. I didn't misrepresent myself. Right? So there was nothing. There was no reason for the area that I was to be in to be restricted. So therefore, I had every legal right to be where I was. I wasn't causing a disturbance. I wasn't committing a crime. He came to me. He engaged me.
I know.
And then used physical force because he didn't like what I had to say, which was, you will treat me with the respect of the citizen you serve. I didn't yell at him. I didn't call him any names. I said, you will treat me with the respect that you serve, because he was coming at me, walking towards me in an aggressive manner, and I could see it coming. I was already knew that man was aggressive. And I asked him to treat me with respect. And my assumptions were right, because he got physically violent with me. For no reason. And
I think he should be
criminally charged. You're trying to use 28622 as your out. And I think it's disgusting. I think it's disgusting.
Okay, I do have court now because it is 10:30, so I do have.
Okay, Bill. I appreciate you taking the time, but I really do. I think you're using 28622 as an out. Have a good day, Bill. Don't be late for court. Oh my God, I'm furious. Furious. Not because he didn't get, I expected this. I expected him not to get charged. Or no, I expected him not to be prosecuted. But that was an amazing conversation. So we're going to look up 28622 and see how it applies to the situation. And we'll do another video. Deep breaths. Serenity now. Serenity now. Be good humans.